Hello and welcome. My name is Shailesh Kumar and you're watching National Defense. Prince Mohammed bin Salman bin Abdulaziz Al Saud, the Crown Prince and Prime Minister of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, is on India visit from September 9 to 11th. He first attended the G20 Summit and Partnership for Global Infrastructure and Investment that launched IMEC, the India-Middle East-Europe Economic Corridor, which is constituted as an alternative and counter to China's Belt and Road Initiative in Europe. On 11 September, he attended the first meeting of India-Saudi Arabia Strategic Partnership Council, co-chaired by Prime Minister Narendra Modi. As high-level Saudi delegation includes 14 members and 6 ministers, this second visit follows the highly successful visit of Prime Minister Narendra Modi to Saudi Arabia in October 2019, during which the two countries established the Strategic Partnership Council. Crown Prince also came to India on a state visit in February 2019. Both Prime Ministers reviewed the progress made under the two ministerial committees of the Strategic Partnership Council, that is, the Committee on Political, Security, Social and Cultural Cooperation and the Committee on Economic and Investment Cooperation. Both leaders also discussed all aspects of bilateral relations, including political, security, defense, trade and economic, cultural, people-to-people ties and regional and international issues of mutual interest. On 11 September itself, Prime Minister of Saudi Arabia also called on the President Draupadi Murmu.
भारत के लिए सऊदी अरब हमारे सबसे महत्वपूर्ण स्ट्रेटेजिक पार्टनर में से एक है। विश्व की दो बड़ी और तेज गति से बढ़ने वाली अर्थव्यवस्थाओं के रूप में हमारा आपसी सहयोग पूरे क्षेत्र की शांति और स्थिरता के लिए महत्वपूर्ण है। कल हमने मिलकर भारत, पश्चिम एशिया और यूरोप के बीच इकोनॉमिक कॉरिडोर स्थापित करने के लिए ऐतिहासिक शुरुआत की है। इसी कॉरिडोर से केवल दोनों देशों ही आपस में नहीं जोड़ेगा, परंतु एशिया, पश्चिम एशिया और यूरोप के बीच आर्थिक सहयोग, ऊर्जा के विकास और डिजिटल कनेक्टिविटी को बल देगा।
This development, it is important to understand the historic ties between the two nations. India and Saudi Arabia have historically close and friendly relations with extensive people-to-people contacts. According to Ministry of External Affairs of India, the trade between both the countries reached all-time high of $52.75 billion in financial year 2022-23. India is Saudi Arabia's second largest trading partner, whereas Saudi Arabia is India's fourth largest trading partner. Both countries also have a strong partnership in the area of energy. There is a vibrant Indian diaspora of around 2.4 million in Saudi Arabia. Indian government also appreciates Indian community's contribution towards the development of the host country.
The Partnership Council was established in 2019 through the signing of the Strategic Partnership Council Agreement between the two countries in October 2019 during the visit of the Honorable Prime Minister of Saudi Arabia.
The Kingdom of Saudi Arabia also facilitates Hajj pilgrimage of over 175,000 Indians every year. If we look at India-Saudi Arabia relations historically, after the establishment of diplomatic relations in 1947, both countries had high-level visits. King Salman bin Abdulaziz Al Saud visited India on a 17-day trip during November-December 1995, and Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru visited the kingdom in September 1956. The visit of Prime Minister Indira Gandhi to Saudi Arabia in April 1982 further consolidated the bilateral relations. The historic visit of King Abdullah to India in January 2006 was a watershed movement that resulted in the signing of the Delhi Declaration, imparting a fresh momentum to the bilateral relations. The reciprocal visit by Prime Minister Dr. Manmohan Singh to Saudi Arabia from February 27 to March 1, 2010 and the Riyadh Declaration signed during the visit elevated the bilateral relations to a strategic partnership level. The visit of the then Crown Prince, now King Salman bin Abdulaziz Al Saud to India in February 2014 further deepened the relations between the two countries, particularly in the area of defense cooperation.
Went on to mention that India and Saudi Arabia have a long history of friendship over several hundreds of years, and no instances of any differences or conflict. That kind of bonhomie he was emphasizing. He also mentioned that both the kingdom and India are the two fastest economies, were the two fastest economies in 2022 last year, and continues to be so. And it is expected that the two countries would remain, the leading economic growth countries of the world for the next 1 decade or so. And so there are so many different areas in which the two countries could cooperate, and the two sides identified areas such as energy cooperation, defense, security, education, technology, transportation, healthcare, tourism and culture.
The visit of Prime Minister Narendra Modi to Riyadh in April 2016 captured the spirit of enhanced cooperation in the political, economic, security and defense realms. During the visit, King Salman conferred the kingdom's highest civilian honor on Prime Minister Narendra Modi, indicating the importance Saudi Arabia attaches to its relations with India.
Both sides also identified space and semiconductors as other areas of cooperation. They agreed to diversify the current status of their hydrocarbons relationship into a comprehensive energy partnership.
The visit of Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman to India in February 2019 further took forward this momentum. During the visit, it was announced that the kingdom would invest approximately $100 billion in India, and 6 memorandum of understandings and agreements were signed in the field of investment, tourism, housing, exchange of audiovisual programs, and an agreement that was signed to pave way for Saudi Arabia to join the International Solar Alliance (ISA), which was launched by Prime Minister Narendra Modi. The latest visit on 11 September witnessed historic signing of agreements between the two countries.
Both sides, the Prime Minister as well as the Crown Prince, extended their full support to the early implementation of the West Coast refinery projects, which, as you know, is a trilateral cooperation between Aramco, ADNOC and the Indian companies, for which funds to the tune of $50 billion are already earmarked. Now, the new thing which has come up is that the two sides agreed to set up a joint task force to help in identifying and channelizing the 100 billion investments which was actually promised by the Saudi side, half of which was for the refinery, and again to have a monitoring committee to ensure that the progress in these refinery projects are done as per the plans laid out by both sides.
It was Prime Minister Narendra Modi's Riyadh visit between 28 to 29th October in 2019 when the Strategic Partnership Council, the SPC agreement, was signed. Under the agreement, a high-level council to steer the Indo-Saudi relations was established. The efforts finally culminated on 11 September when both Prime Ministers co-chaired the first meeting of the SPC and signed key MOUs agreements again.
Discussions also revolved on the grids, various types of grids like power grid, gas grid, water grid, optical fiber network, so that the two countries could cooperate. Another important element was that the two sides also agreed to expedite the India GCC FTA negotiations, which they felt would act as a catalyst for further strengthening our economic cooperation between the two sides. They also agreed to strengthen cooperation in the fintech field and also explore trading in the local currencies. This was discussed.
If we look at the past meetings of 2019, a total of 12 MOUs agreements were signed across several fields, including energy, security, defense production, civil aviation, medical products, strategic petroleum reserves, small and medium scale enterprises, industries, and training of diplomats. During the visit, Prime Minister Modi also delivered the keynote address at the third Future Investment Initiative Summit. Now, if we decipher the Strategic Partnership Council, then the SPC has two subcommittees. The first committee is on political, security, social and cultural cooperation, and the second committee is on economy and investment. Both subcommittees have 4 functional levels of engagements. The first level is summit level, that included Prime Minister and Crown Prince. Second level is ministerial level. Third level is senior officials meetings. And the fourth level is joint working groups or JWGs. 4 JWGs have been formed under each subcommittee. The JWGs under the political committee are: number 1, political and councillor; number 2, legal and security; 3, social and cultural; and number 4 is the joint committee on defense cooperation. If we talk about the JWs under the economic committee, then number 1 is agriculture and food security, number 2 is energy, number 3 technology and information technology, and number 4 is the industry and infrastructure.
The two leaders expressed their satisfaction at the volume of trade, the trade level with both countries have reached, India being the second largest trading partner of Saudi Arabia and Saudi being the fourth largest trading partner of India. Again, the Prime Minister also laid emphasis on certain sectors, and he mentioned certain sectors for cooperation. So he mentioned critical minerals as one area. Food security is another area which was mentioned, especially it is of Saudi interest, creation of food parks and other things. Since we have a very good startup ecosystem in India, Prime Minister emphasized on the need for setting up a startup bridge between India and Saudi Arabia.
If we look at the economic cooperation between the two countries, then India is Saudi Arabia's second largest trading partner after China, and Saudi Arabia is India's fourth largest trade partner after US, China and UAE. While the trade with US is in surplus, there is a huge trade imbalance with other countries including Saudi Arabia. According to Ministry of Commerce and Industry data, during the financial year 2022 and 23, the imports from Saudi Arabia reached $42.03 billion and exports to Saudi Arabia were only at $10.72 billion, registering an increase of 22.48% over the last year. Total trade with Saudi Arabia accounted for 4.53% of the India's total trade in financial year 22 and 23. The trade deficit is also attributed to oil imports, as more than 18% of India's crude oil imports are sourced from Saudi Arabia. There are around 745 Indian companies registered as joint ventures or 100% owned entities with investments worth approximately $2 billion in the kingdom. This is the figure of October 2021. It may have changed now. These companies operate in diverse sectors such as management and consultancy services, construction projects, telco communications, information technology, financial services and software developments, pharmaceuticals, etc. Major Indian companies and corporate groups such as L&T, Tata, Wipro, TCS, TCIL, Shapurji and Palonji, etc. have established a strong presence in Saudi Arabia.
Education field, the Prime Minister, in the light of the new education policy, emphasized on the need for strengthening cooperation in this sector, particularly in the student exchange program and university to university and institution to institution level collaborations. And he also suggested, our Prime Minister suggested that a joint working group on education and skill development could be set up to kind of explore this. Also in the context of culture and people to people, the cooperation in the field of film making also came up. So both sides agreed that this is another area where we can work together. I'm happy to share with you that during this visit, as many as 8 agreements have been signed. And the important ones, or I would just read out to you, is agreement 1 is the field of energy, which was signed by the Saudi Minister of Energy and our Minister of New and Renewable Energy. Then there was an agreement between the agreement in the field of digitalization and electronic manufacturing between the IT ministries of both sides. There was one agreement between the CVC of India and its counterpart, the Saudi Oversight and Anti-Corruption Authority. And the fourth agreement was between the National Archives. Then there was an agreement between the two investment entities, that is the Invest India on the Indian side and the Ministry of Investment on Saudi side. There was another agreement between the two Exim banks. There was also another agreement between the small and medium enterprises banks of two sides, that is SIDBI and the SME Bank of Saudi Arabia. and the last one was in the field of desalination.
If we talk about Saudi investments in India, then as of March 2021, that amounted to $3.13 billion. The major Saudi investment groups include Aramco, Sebic, Zamil, E-Holidays and AI Banerjee Group. Additionally, SoftBank's Vision Fund has invested in Indian startups such as Deliveries, FirstCry, Grofers, Ola, Oyo, Paytm and Policy Bazaar. In June 2020, Saudi Arabia's Public Investment Fund announced $1.49 billion investment, that is 2.32% stake in Reliance Industries Jio platforms. And in November 2020, PIF announced another investment of $1.3 billion, that is 2.04% stake in Reliance Retail Ventures Limited. In the food sector, in May 2020, Saudi Agricultural and Livestock Investment Company, the SALIC, acquired a 29.9% stake in Dawat Foods Limited with an investment of $17.23 million. More recently, in July 2021, PIF invested in India-based health tech Healthify.me's 75 million Series C funding round.
In addition to these, there are several other agreements which are under various stages of discussion. The prominent one is the one on grid connectivity, which is in the advanced stages of discussion. We are also separately discussing with the Saudi side a visa waiver agreement for diplomatic passports, which is not yet ready, but we hope that it would be ready soon. So these were some of the main points which had come up for discussions during this. The strategic partnership meeting took place in a very amicable and cordial manner, where the two leaders recognized the efforts made by the respective ministers. You know that it had two verticals, two headed by the foreign ministers and the other one headed by our commerce and industry minister and Saudi Minister of Energy, and the other SOMs and other joint working groups. They agreed to have the meeting at regular frequency. The next one would be in Riyadh, hopefully next year. So this is in some the parameters and contours on which the discussions have.
Other proposed major investments include the $44 billion West Coast Refinery and Petrochemicals project, which has now grown to $50 billion now in Maharashtra, which is being jointly built by Saudi Aramco, Abu Dhabi National Oil Company and an Indian consortium which includes Indian Oil Corporation, Hindustan Petroleum Corporation and Bharat Petroleum Corporation.
There was also on the sidelines of this investment forum which took place, which was organized with 5 key themes. Again, ICT and entrepreneurship, chemicals and fertilizers, advanced manufacturing, food security, energy and sustainability. It was a joint event, but mainly the lead being taken by their Ministry of Investment and also supported by Invest India and FICCI. And we believe that several agreements in the private sector have been signed during they're still going on. It will end, I think, in another couple of hours' time.
In the renewable energy sector, Saudi company AI Fanar has a controlling stake in 600 megawatt wind power projects in India. Saudi Aramco is also in discussion with Reliance Industries to acquire a 20% stake in its oil to chemicals business for an approximate value of around $15 billion. So I hope this information would be very useful to you. If you have yet not subscribed my channel, so please subscribe now. You may also support my channel through Patreon. The link is patreon.com/national defense. Thank you. Jai Hind. Vande Mataram.